Recent events have shone a light on serious systemic problems and societal vulnerabilities, and have changed the way that many of us see the world. For some, the world has always been difficult and dangerous, and so recent events haven't changed much. But for others, it is now a more frightening and increasingly uncertain place, and we, as a society, bear an obligation to address those fears with real measures that respect every person's equal right to basic safety and security. Large public protests against systemic racism and police brutality mostly began with a huge outpouring of emotion that quickly descended into violence, chaos, and looting. Fortunately, the protests became increasingly peaceful as that emotion changed to stoic resolve and the voices of change became louder. And now, public awareness of the issues is greater than ever, and attitudes towards the police and the way that policing is conducted are going through a level of assessment and change that hasn't happened before. Today, calls to defund the police and to fundamentally transform their roles and responsibility in society are a serious part of the public discourse, and for many, that has been a long time coming. The situation around the protests is still evolving quickly, and no one can predict exactly where we'll land on these important issues. However, where we can all agree is that change is on the way, and more change is necessary. One small aspect of this cultural shift is the way in which security measures, and particularly crime prevention through environmental design, is now expected to increasingly factor in the protection of people and property. More aggressive and potentially dangerous physical security or target hardening measures like barbed wire or spiked irregular surfaces designed to prevent sleeping near buildings or built spaces may no longer be considered acceptable. These kinds of hardening measures may now be perceived as being unfairly punitive or exclusionary towards an already vulnerable population in our society. Other more traditional security methods meant to deter unwanted behavior may now pose a significant reputational or brand risk for companies, organizations, and individuals that outweighs the original risk to safety and property. The first generation CPTED principles, such as the broken windows theory or the concept of defensible space, were originally intended to prod us towards a higher standard of property design, management, and maintenance in order to discourage further negative behavior or misuse of space. Unfortunately, certain elements of CPTED are now associated with the most severe zero-tolerance policing policies and the move towards exclusionary gated communities, something we now know that has disproportionately affected the most vulnerable people in our society. It has even been rebranded by some as crime prevention through exclusionary design. The standards and expectations that must be met with respect to real inclusivity and tolerance in our policies and procedures have dramatically shifted. Now, given everything that is going on with our world, how do we navigate this narrow path between our requirement to secure our cities, businesses, homes, and built spaces, and our sincere desire to be as inclusive and tolerant as possible to people who are also vulnerable and in need of basic support and understanding? CPTED, which has been with us for over half a century and has helped to shape the world around us, viewed through today's lens, may just provide some of those answers. Most security professionals would say that the goals of CPTED are a positive for society, and that they are proud of the work that they have done to further these goals. One of the goals of CPTED is to reduce fear for legitimate users of a given space. How do we now define the term legitimate? Is a homeless person automatically illegitimate? What does that really mean? If someone has no home, no school, no job, and nowhere else to go, if our private spaces are gated, And if our public spaces are designed to exclude them, have we created a situation where the inevitable next legitimate place for them to be is in prison? Systemic problems require systemic solutions. As a society, as individuals, and within our organizational areas of influence, we can only hope to chip away at the edges of a problem so fundamentally challenging, but we still have an obligation to do what we can. How do we balance the need for safety and security in the places where we live and work, with the need to consider the well-being of our society with no one left behind or left without hope? Unacceptable target hardening options may be, indeed should be, replaced with enhanced physical security in the form of traditional access control, enhanced natural access control through landscaping and lighting design, additional security patrols and surveillance, and better use and integration of positive activity generators in problem areas that are known for vagrancy or graffiti. Is this still CPTED? Yes, it is. As always, CPTED is just one component of an integrated security system and security strategy. It was never designed or intended to work in isolation. Both passive and active security measures will still be required to make our built environment safe for everyone. But if we are thoughtful and considerate in the way that we apply these measures, perhaps we can do so in ways that are both effective and more inclusive.